I really want to tell you about this dream that I had. I've tried to make this video like 10 times, and every time I try to make it, something goes wrong. It's just been a lot of issues. If this one doesn't work, I'm gonna take it as a sign that I'm not supposed to share the contents of my dream with you. But I really want to make this video. Basically, in my dream, it was revealed to me a new form of art called polysocketmorphs. Before I get into the dream, I did want to address a couple comments I got in my last video. Apologies for that air conditioning noise. It is so hot. Also, I put my hair up. If you're sexually attracted to me, put it in the comments section. Just kidding, guys. I'm just kidding, guys. The first one comes from Arthropod, who said, "Oh my gosh, how have you known so many different books? Thank you for the litspiration, Carmen. Literature plus inspiration, Carmen." To which I said, "Thank you. I learned about all books in schools and also at the bookstore and also at the library, if you can even believe it." So thank you to my friend for that comment. I got another comment also. This one comes from Dennis Howell 9319, and it says, "I want to pee in your bed." So actually, you cannot pee in my bed. I said, why? So far, no response from Dennis Howell about why he wants to pee in my bed, but I'm sure he will get back to me soon. I will say though, no peeing on my bed, peeing on the bed, off limits. Okay, so let me tell you about this dream that I had. Basically, in my dream, I was seeing this guy and he wanted to take me to his friend's dinner party. So we go to the friend's dinner party, and at first it's just normal, you know, the guy's like showing us his sculptures and then takes us into the dining room. In there, it's like my mom's there, my dad, some other people that I know, but a bunch of people that I don't know. Have you ever heard that thing that's like, oh, in your dreams you can't create a new face, you can only see people that you've seen before? Well, I didn't know these people. I didn't know these people. Was it you? Were you in my dream? Why were you in my dream? Just kidding, guys. I don't think that you were in my dream. So, you know, we're all eating dinner. There's like these macaroons on the table, like they're like orange. But then eventually all of us, the patrons, realize this is an evil dinner. This is evil dinner. The guy who I'm seeing's friend, who's hosting the dinner, then is like, it's time for me to cut you up with a chainsaw. And we can't leave the dinner. He's gonna cut us up with the chainsaw. He's like trying to pass out sleeping pills so that we'll go to sleep and it'll be easier for him to chop us up with a chainsaw. I'm like, I don't want to take any pills so that you can chop me up with a chainsaw into millions of tiny little pieces. I'm not doing that. But eventually we take the pills and we're all like starting to fall asleep when we're like, wait, why don't we just overpower this guy? So, you know, we attack him and take over and whatever. Then the dream cuts and it turns out this was all for a movie. We were just filming a movie. We all leave this dining area and we're like in this stairwell and there's all these sculptures on the ground, like on the floor. And the guy who was, you know, the evil chainsaw guy was like, oh yeah, feel free to take one of my sculptures as a souvenir. They're called polysocketmorphs. I took 3 sculptures. One of them was like kind of like an elephant balancing a ball on its trunk. One of them was a pyramid with a cylinder, ball, sphere on the tip. And the other one was like, it really reminded me of that sculpture by Brancusi, The Kiss, which is in the Philadelphia Museum of Art, also home of Marcel Duchamp's stuff, which I talked about in the last video. Brancusi's The Kiss is this sort of like proto-cubist sculpture. Traditionally, sculpture is you are trying to make the image look as realistic as possible. Cubism is sort of about abstracting out those concepts. And if you look at the other 2 sculptures that I saw in my dream, those are sort of like you're abstracting out this concept of a elephant balancing a ball in its trunk. Even the pyramid, it's sort of like if you were to abstract an elephant with the ball on it, it's sort of like a point, like a pyramid with a sphere on the top. When I woke up from the dream, I started Googling about polysocketmorphs and seeing what I could learn about them. There's no such thing as a polysocketmorph. But I was like, polymorph sounds like it could be real. And I feel like it's your duty, if your dream is telling you about some form of art, that you have to investigate that. You can't not investigate that. So I looked into polymorphs. The first thing I saw when I Googled for polymorphs was crystal polymorphs, which reminded me of Cat's Cradle, Kurt Vonnegut, which I talked about in the last book. I want to read to you a section about polymorphs. There are several ways, Dr. Breed said to me, in which certain liquids can crystallize, can freeze, Several ways in which their atoms can stack and lock in an orderly, rigid way. That old man with spotted hands invited me to think of the several ways in which cannonballs might be stacked on a courthouse lawn, of the several ways in which oranges might be packed into a crate. So it is with atoms and crystals too. And two different crystals of the same substance can have quite different physical properties. He told me about a factory that had been growing big crystals of ethylene diamine tartrate. The crystals were useful in certain manufacturing operations, he said, but one day the factory discovered that the crystals it was growing no longer had the properties desired. The atoms had begun to stack and lock, to freeze in a different fashion. The liquid that was crystallizing hadn't changed, but the crystals it was forming were, as far as industrial applications went, pure junk. How this had come about was a mystery. The theoretical villain, however, was what Dr. Breed called the seed. He meant by that a tiny grain of the undesired crystal pattern. The seed, which had come from God only knows where, taught the atoms the novel way in which to stack and lock, to crystallize, to freeze. Nothing about cannonballs on a courthouse lawn or about oranges in a crate again, he suggested, and he helped me to see that the pattern of the bottom layer of cannonballs or of oranges determined how each subsequent layer would stack and lock. The bottom layer is the seed of how every cannonball or every orange that comes after it is going to behave, even to an infinite number of cannonballs or oranges. The word polymorph just means many forms. So when there's different forms that a crystal can compound into, that's a crystal polymorph. There's other forms of polymorphs. There's polymorphs in minerals. One example is that carbon can both form coal and it can form diamonds. When I learned about the crystal polymorphs, I was really like, oh my gosh, there's a Kurt Vonnegut connection. Of course there is, because as all good things in the world are, there's a Kurt Vonnegut connection. The other day when I was trying to plan for making this video, I wrote all this shit down in this notebook. And it just looks insane, but it is a little insane. I also learned about this single-cell organism called Stentor polymorphus. This is a single-cell organism that eats algae, but it doesn't like kill the algae or consume it. It just keeps it inside of itself, and then the algae photosynthesizes to fuel itself and also Stentor polymorphus. The idea of a polymorph can also apply to just general concepts as well. Like a person can be a polymorph, like I could be a polymorph. Like you could serve many roles to different people in your life, and in that sense, you have many forms. So I thought about that concept in terms of what I saw in my dream, and this sort of elephant, pyramid, kiss sculpture. And if you think about these two being like an abstraction of the idea of an elephant with a ball on its nose, that's sort of like another form of that idea. It makes me think about that one art piece that's like a picture of a chair, an actual chair, and the word chair, and it's like, which one's really the chair? Maybe it's a polymorph. Think about it. But also the word socket is in there. So what's that about? I think that it's all these sculptures sort of touching each other, interlocked in this pattern that makes it a polysocketmorph. I don't think you could have one thing be a polysocketmorph. It needs to be this demonstration of many different things. Also, I did a little Googling about what it means to see an elephant, and I learned about the phrase seeing the elephant, which means to be gaining experience of the world at a significant cost. And I'm just like, okay, I don't really want to do that. I mean, I would like experience of the world, but I'm a little afraid of the significant cost. And I've been paying some significant costs in my life anyways. So like, another one? But that's what my dream told me. So basically, my main goal in life now is to make a bunch of sculptures and make them polysocketmorphs and do an art gallery with all my polysocketmorphs. And maybe through art, we could change the mother freaking world. Holy crap. Isn't that inspiring? Isn't that inspiring as hell? Isn't that just so freaking inspirational? I am not sure how to work the algae into the equation of the polysocketmorph. Maybe it's this endosymbiotic relationship where they're feeding each other as the different sculptures reinforce the concept of a polysocketmorph. Maybe if you really wanted to grasp at straws, you could say that, but I wouldn't say that. Oh, one thing that I forgot to mention, the Minecraft aspect of it all. You could tell I was on some shit because why did I even write that down? Why did I write that down? Anyways, I know this was a little different. I didn't show you just a bunch of crap that I own, so I appreciate you sticking with me. If you have any ideas about what a polymorph is or what a polymorph could be, then that would be awesome. Let me know what you think. If you want to donate to my carbon clay fund so I can make millions of polysocketmorph sculptures, then we can seriously get this to be a life-changing thing. Everyone donate to Carmen's Clay Fund and create my lifelong dream to have a polysocketmorph gallery. Telling you about my dream makes me think about that Laurie Andrews song that's like, don't you hate it when people tell you their dreams? I hope you don't hate me for telling you my dream. I hope you don't hate me. I hope you love me because I love you. And you should smash that motherfucking subscribe button. Smash that motherfucking like button. Leave me a comment. Nobody answered my last comment question of the day, which was how many Diet Coke cans? The answer was 12. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful evening, a wonderful night. I'll see you later. Goodbye. I love you.